Well, guys, good morning here. Dealing with the West and Northwest states. If you got your communities book here, it's pages R6 to R7, last region. And to be honest, it's a big one. A lot of states, but at least they're a lot bigger states. So, sorry, dealing with the West here. Come on up. So we've had all these different regions that we're going through, and we're going through the green region. And don't forget, we're also going to add Alaska and Hawaii. We're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. But a lot of states, again, a lot of bigger states. Something we're going to talk about today, and especially on Thursday, is that this West region is probably the most diverse region we've gone through, meaning the most different. I know there's differences between each region. I mean, if you talk about the Northeast, the big cities on the coast are a lot different from what we call the upper parts of the states, right? I mean, a coastal city like New York and Baltimore and Philadelphia can be a lot different than cities like Buffalo and Pittsburgh. However, they still had a lot in common. Yes, of course, they're close proximity, meaning they're close together, and the different Appalachian Mountains and the different dominated by the Atlantic coast to the east, as well as the Great Lakes and rivers to the west and to the north, but they at least have a lot in common. Same with the Southeast states. A lot of them have the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, or major waterways like the Ohio River and the Mississippi River that can connect them. We talked about the Midwest states. A lot of farmland all throughout. Also some big cities like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, Gary, Indiana, St. Paul, Minnesota, St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, right? Those different states like that, yes, they're different, but they still have a lot in common. Remember the Great Lakes and the waterways and the farming here. And the Southwest, yep, Arizona is different than Texas, no doubt. But the weather and the wide open fields and land is what makes this so a region that not only are they close together, but they have those similarities. Well, the West, to be honest, yes, they all kind of bunched together, but there's really a lot of diversity. And again, by diversity, I mean differences. Here's just an example of all the different states and capital cities throughout. But when we're talking about the West, I mean, you have this huge group of land, and what I like about this is don't forget about good old Alaska and Hawaii, because those are in here too. But we have a huge difference in land. We're going to, again, especially talk about this on Thursday. We have Alaska that's way up north. We have Hawaii here that's way out in the middle of the ocean to the west. And then we have all these states. We're not going to be talking about waterways as much or big rivers because there's really not a lot of great shipping rivers, but there is, of course, the Pacific Ocean. Now, if you take a look at states like Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, they're way away from the Pacific Ocean. So you can't say that they have that in common. And even, look at this, it's hard to read, but this says the Rocky Mountains. Huge, tall mountains that really dominate. We're going to look at some maps later in the week. Huge, tall mountains that dominate huge stretches of Colorado and Utah and Nevada. And yes, of course, Arizona here. But so again, yes, these are in close proximity, but throughout the week and a little bit today, we're actually going to talk about more the differences of the West region than what they have in common. However, just as we saw in maps earlier, we do have this as one region to learn the states and the capitals. So here's a picture of, you might know this bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, right? This is what you see in like the Golden State Warriors uniform if you watch like Steph Curry and things like that. This is in the Bay Area of what they call San Francisco. There's also a city across the bay that's called Oakland, and that's where all this is. Big, big city. Lots of tall buildings. This is right on a bay, which is part of the ocean that actually cuts into the land of California on the Pacific Ocean. So not only do you have big cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego, also in this West region, you have huge tall, snow-capped mountains with snow year-round. And this is in states like Colorado and Utah and way up north in Alaska. That's where these Rocky Mountains, which is a very famous big mountain range in our country, this is where those are. And again, it has offshoots even in California and Washington. It goes throughout this whole region, but the biggest, tallest mountains are in Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, states like that. So again, completely different from a coastal town like San Francisco to the skiing peaks and the dog sleds of Alaska and even Colorado. And then in the West region, again, more differences. You can go to Hawaii, and here you have the tropics. Literally palm trees and ocean and nice, beautiful weather. Get the suntan lotion and your swimming trunks and go in the ocean. That Hawaii is completely different than Alaska and Colorado, which is completely different than San Francisco. And then, even if you have the Great Northwest, like in Washington and Oregon, they literally have a tropical rainforest where it rains every single day for parts of Washington by Seattle and parts of Oregon before the Rocky Mountain chains there. Again, I just want you to understand that, yes, we're talking about the West region, and unlike other regions where we talk about why they're similar and why they're grouped together, the West has states that are close to one another, but there's actually more differences than similarities in here. And so for today, my fine folks, starting this week on a Tuesday, all I want you to do is get introduced to the different states all over the place. I think, besides Hawaii, you probably have enough room in here to write the state name neatly. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do. R6 and R7, way in the back of your community's books is where you can find these state names. And please write them neatly in there. Also, tomorrow especially, we're going to talk about Alaska, which don't be deceived. That is what Alaska looks like, but it's nowhere near how big it is. We're going to talk about that tomorrow and why some map makers do that. But at any rate, your assignment, write in the state names, guys. Hey, Lord's blessings to you as you praise your Savior as you work on the West region.